Welcome back. Today we're going to have a look at ways to deal with cymbal bleed in your snare mic. If you've done any drum recording, you will know how frustrating it is when you have loads of cymbal bleed getting into your snare mic, and when you're trying to mix it, you might be trying to brighten your snare up and get it to sit nice and punchy and loud in your mix, but all that's happening is you're bringing out more and more cymbal noise and it just sounds awful. So I'm going to show you a couple of techniques to help deal with cymbal bleed and get a better sounding snare. For the example today, this is a cover of a Blink-182 song, Fallen Interlude, that I did a little while back. I'm not going to play the whole track, just the drums, so we don't get any copyright flags, but this is what it sounds like finished. So pretty cool groove, lots of hats, lots of ghosting as well. So this is a great example of trying to find a sweet spot between the bleed suppression and allowing those ghost notes to still come through. So let's have a quick look at what I've got going on here. Okay, so we have our processing first, a little bit of EQ, a little bit of compression, and then a bit of an expander gate going on. So the gate's dropping around 12 dB, or the expander's down 12 dB, and then pushing the snare transient through when it hits. And we've got like a 1 second release here. So it's kind of a slow release to let the snare ring, and you can still hear the ghosting. We're following that up with FabFilter's Pro MB multi-band compressor, but it also works as an expander. So we've got a high shelf, and then we're going to make an expander mode instead of compress. And what's that going to do? We're going to tell it how much we want to push down these high frequencies, and then when the snare hits, it's going to throw it back up and release it, and we're going to get the attack of the snare. But because we're going to do a fast attack and a fast release, it's going to quickly drop back down. So we're just going to get that initial hit of the snare, and it's going to drop back away, but only the high frequencies. So once we have that set up, we'll put it in free mode, which lets us select the frequencies that we want to have trigger the expander over here. The mid-range works better because we're not going to get any cymbals or hi-hat that are going to accidentally trigger it. So this will work best to just trigger off the snare. And then that's about it. So let's have a little listen. I'll play the track and I will fiddle with how far we can push this and see when it starts to fall apart a little bit. So yeah, around minus 12 to 14 dB still sounds pretty good. You get the ghosting coming through, and the snare sounds still fairly natural. There's still a little bit of cymbal bleed, but it's manageable and it sounds good. Let's hear it with Pro MB turned off and see how bad it is. So that bleeds pretty intense. So it does an awesome job at killing that high frequency, nasty hi-hat stuff that's coming through. And we can still hear our ghost notes, and it doesn't sound too unnatural and doesn't sound like it's killing the sound too much because we're using it sparingly. So that is one way we can deal with some snare bleed. Another way is just straight up gating the snare. So let's take away Pro MB and see what we can achieve with just the expander section in a plugin like this SSL channel strip. See how far we can drop it. So it sounds all right. We're still getting a little bit of the sustain of the snare, but we're losing a little bit of the ghosting because it's dropping pretty dramatically. Let's hear it in the mix, hear how it sounds. Compare it to Pro MB. Back to just gating. So yeah, we're losing some of that fullness of the ghost notes in there. But if you like that short, snappier sound, then the gate works pretty well. You get the ghosting with the snare bottom mic and the overheads, but just not quite as fullness that we're getting as we get with the Pro MB. Let's have a look at another option for dealing with some bleed. We can have a go with the Slate Digital VMR drum gate. So this is a pretty good plugin for dealing with bleed. Let's have a listen to what I've got dialed in here. So you can play with the parameters a little bit to dial this in, the release and the range. Let's have a go. Pretty decent. Let's hear it in the context of the mix. Let's hear Pro MB again. Slate. Fairly similar. I do notice when I listen to them soloed that the Slate Digital one sounds a little thinner, like it takes a bit of the body out of the sound. There's a bit of a tone shift going on. Pro MB. And yeah, the Slate one gates it a little harder as well. But both pretty good at killing a bit of bleed. The Slate sounds all right. Your drums just have to be very consistent to make sure that the gate triggers properly though when you're using the Slate one. So just be aware of that. Next up is one more option here. We're going to try and get a similar result using Wave C6 to Pro MB and I guess the Slate drum gate as well. So similar kind of things. Going to get an expander type mode happening here. All I've done is push the high frequency band over to about 2K. And then we've brought the gain down 10 dB and then pushed the range up 10 dB. So we're just going to bounce it back up to where it started. So pushing all those high frequencies down and then throwing them back up with the expander. Fastest attack, fastest release that this can do. And then we're just going to play with the threshold until it starts to sound good. Getting too much hi-hat triggering there. It's kind of the sweet spot there. It's not bad. I feel like it's lacking a little bit of attack. We've lost a little bit of clarity, but it sounds okay. Let's hear Pro MB versus that. C6. Pro MB. Yeah, so I think Pro MB just maintains the transient a bit better. It's a bit faster, I guess. You can control what triggers this band a little bit better than the C6. And there you go. They are a couple of good options for dealing with cymbal bleed. So you could use something like an SSL channel just to expand a gate. Pro MB does a really good job of just expanding those high frequencies. And then we had Slate drum gate, worked a treat, it was pretty good. And then the poor man's Pro MB Wave C6, which works okay, but not quite up to the standard of FabFilter. All those plugins, solid for getting rid of a bit of cymbal bleed. And yeah, you could pick your poison and make it work, really. It's funny how they're all the same color too. Bit of a purple theme going on for snare bleed suppression. Hopefully that helped you out and you'll be able to get a better sounding snare drum in your mixes with less cymbal bleed. Leave a comment below, let me know what you thought. Make sure you hit like and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, catch you guys later.